You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe Venosa.
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe Venosa, and with us in the house, two old friends, Mr. Mike Goldberg from Delmar,
Hey.
and Miss Trish Melvin, from Fruitland.
Hi.
Hi, pleasure. So, as of time of filming, it's about 70 degrees outside. It's sunny. There's a light breeze. It's sort of the kind of day that even gets my wife out of the house, which is amazing. And it really, I guess, makes us think of how we can enjoy that weather. And one of the great things that I think a lot of us now are hopefully beginning to do as the spring comes is experience our parks and maybe get out and just enjoy the recreational facilities. Am I right on that?
100%, and do it before the heavy pollen starts, like for the next week or two.
Too late.
Before the heavy pollen.
Well, what I do is you have the 2 weeks of green,
Yeah.
and then you get a good rain, and then hopefully it kind of dissipates. But yeah, the pollen is already coming. That's for sure. Speaking of folks coming in, or things coming, we have two old friends and certainly two experts on the local park systems. We have Mr. Mark Carroll from Sharptown and old friend Joe White from Parsonsburg. And they've done a tremendous amount of work over the years and continue to do incredible work with regard to youth sports programming in our county parks, and more broadly have helped keep the public aware about improvements and activities going on in these park and recreation facilities. So what I'd like to do is actually, I'd like to bring them both on, hear their experiences, their updates, and maybe they can inform the public a little bit more about things that are sort of in the works. And then afterward, I'd like to bring you back on, and maybe we can reflect a little bit on the things that they addressed.
And I tell you, those two guys are really the county's movers and shakers for bringing youth sports programs to the kids here in Wicomico County. They've done an enormous amount of work.
Don't I know it? Stick around, and we'll be right back with our next segment of Open Agenda. Welcome back to Open Agenda. With us in the house, we've got Mr. Joe White.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And Mr. Mark Carroll.
How's it going?
It's going great.
I'm on this side now.
I got to be honest, I'm a little intimidated. I got two of the biggest authorities in sports in the county, and I can barely swing a baseball bat. So
I think there's a lot of folks who would challenge you on that. I don't know that Mark and I are authority, other than we have the bags of soccer balls and the uniforms and all that.
And
so.
you put the lines out.
We do.
Don't forget that, among other things.
Yeah.
Now, I well, to that point, you guys are both known in the community for many, many things that you do. You guys wear a lot of hats, literally and figuratively, and particularly with regard to the tremendous work that you've both done with youth sports programming. And you also attend every meeting of the County Parks Commission.
Just about. One of the two of us is there. There's only 5 a year. They're every other month. They're the last Tuesday every other month. So the last one was in March. And they happen every other month. And they take the summer off. So there's not one in the middle of the summer.
True.
So.
But of course, those are meetings that most regular citizens probably aren't even aware of, and yet you guys have such a commitment to these issues that you really do take the time to analyze, investigate, and dialogue.
We do, but we're not on the commission.
Right.
The public can go. There's seating for public, and you can go and watch these. There's even a time for public comment, which we use a lot of times to talk about things that are important to us.
Well, would you say that the public is generally engaged in youth sports programming overall, or is that something that's been a bit of a challenge?
You need that. You need that spark. Once you get people going, and Mark has such a great volunteer network, and I've been building one out at Pittsville. I have great volunteers as well. But once you get that engine rolling, it's like it's just got to hit a steam going downhill. And then really, I think one of our biggest goals is always to support our volunteers. And we've been on the other side of that, whether it's Little League or something where maybe you didn't feel like you had quite as much support as you wanted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And how long have you been involved, broadly speaking, in local youth sports rec programming?
10? Yeah, me 8. He has a son who's older than my daughter.
Okay.
So.
And what would you say, going from that trajectory at the beginning of when you got involved to now, what would you say has the general I guess trajectory is the word again to use for that, but how has it gone since, and what are the trends that you've noticed, and where do you think we're going with youth sports programming as a county?
I think it was already, just based on the timeline where I was involved, I think it was kind of slowing down already. and then we went right into COVID. And then I feel like just we've always been recovering since then.
Yeah, I would say 8 years ago, I felt like the participation was slowing down, and there was less opportunities to get on a field or in a gym. That maybe the doors were locked a little bit more, not intentionally, but just there wasn't the programming there.
Yeah.
And we also saw a really shift to travel sports, and they're not like the evil empire. They're not what Mark and I do. But we're seeing a shift back to more community-based recreational programming because, let's face it, time is a limiting factor for a lot of parents. And our program is designed to get kids to play with their friends in their own town. And then, yes, we travel from Sharptown to Pittsville a couple Saturdays a year and vice versa. We go to Hebron and Mardella, and we're going to be going down the west side and hopefully Del Mar once that project is done out at Mason-Dixon. But people are wanting more of that less ambitious feel where you're regimented 2 or 3 nights a week and thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah. There's kind of a coldness and an exclusivity with travel sports.
It's a business.
It's a business, and it's always strange that you go to some of these events where, like, I'll take my son to Del Mar to the Henry Parker complex, and you'll see people from other states. Which is great
for tourism.
But it's a weird dynamic because you kind of feel like you've maybe to some extent, maybe this sounds a bit harsh, but you've almost been invaded, at least for a short time, where you don't really know anybody there, and there's not a connection to those programs.
I love the Parker complex, and we both played soccer and stuff growing up out there when they stud soccer fields. But I feel more at home at Winter Place or Gene Lowe or Hebron Lions Club Field. I feel like there are spots.
Yeah.
Henry Parker complex, it's really for the tourism market. I mean, there's some local leagues that play there.
Yeah, the Challenger League is there.
Yeah, but we feel more at home when we're in our own hometowns.
Yeah.
So now the nice thing is at the last Parks and Rec Commission meeting, there was a lot of great updates for those same facilities. I mean, we heard Mason-Dixon complex that's been under construction. That construction phase is supposed to finish up in April, and the grow-in phase will be done in June.
Okay.
The Del Mar Little League's going to be playing this year out at the East Wicomico fields in Winter Place.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that league folded. But maybe in a serendipitous way that those fields were available for Del Mar because Del Mar has a strong Little League. It is phenomenal. I love going out there. A lot of the kids I've coached have gone on to play out there as they've gotten older. Yeah, it's great to see that.
That's awesome.
And then I was just the other day, I went out to the Leonards Mill Dog Park.
Yeah.
And that opened in October.
Yeah.
But then we had this incredibly cold winter.
Yeah.
And it was great to see a lot of folks out there. And Mark, you've done a nice job with Gene Lowe Park. You have the lights up out there, right?
Yes. Thank you. That was another partnership with the county. We saw an opportunity. We partnered with the Wicomico County Recreation Parks and Tourism, and we're able to get the funding to get lights out at the park, which is amazing because you were talking about when we were playing at the complex when we were kids. We'd been playing in the outfields of baseball fields for so long. I had forgotten how bright a soccer field is supposed to be. So that first night we flipped the lights on, and they're LEDs, so they're highly focused. And then you see this bright field, and then beyond it is darkness. And then my head was trying to reconcile what I was looking at because I was thinking, am I at the complex again? Yeah. Because that was the last time I had played under.
You could see those lights from like miles away, but you knew you were going to go play a soccer game.
Yes, such positive memories of my childhood playing games out at the complex under the lights. So to have a little piece of that in Sharptown is amazing.
The really cool thing, and Mark touched on about the funding apparatus, I mean, the county did not actually pay for the lights. They just had to forward fund from the grant. Mark went out and got a grant for the community parks and playgrounds to pay for those lights. Unfortunately, somebody has to foot that bill ahead of time. And his relationship, just like mine with the Parks and Rec Commission, has gotten to be so strong that he was able to, they forward funded it, but the county taxpayers have been reimbursed for that money. Yeah. So it did not come out of our pockets.
It's so impressive just seeing how engaged private citizens who have both the credibility but also the passion and the love of this, what you can do. I mean, to go out there and get a grant on your own, which again we have county people that theoretically do that, and they do that, but I'm in awe of that. Like that's incredible.
And
To be fair, I didn't think it was going to work.
but it didn't deter you. No. But you say that over on the west side, like Indian Village.
Yeah.
I mean, so their grand opening will be in April.
Yeah,
for the
that's gonna
new.
look great. Yeah,
it's not just new playground equipment; it's new trails.
Yep.
Bathrooms have been renovated.
Yeah, it's severely needed.
And this is a park. Now it's not in an area that is on my side of town, but I've gone over there. I've met with the community folks out on that side of town. That's a park where kids ride their bikes to, which is exactly what Mark and I are seeing, whether I'm in Pittsville or in Hebron. We have found that if the kids can get on their bikes and get themselves there,
they'll use it.
They'll use it, and that's key. And to the folks out there and the ones who are working on the Emerson Holloway master plan now, that one's in a couple years in advance. This is exactly the community involvement. So as much as Mark and I have done, you have some other pockets who are doing this and they're finding the same success. And hats off to Steve Miller, James Simmons, and their team.
Yeah, they do an incredible. I mean, it's amazing what they can do given all these balls that are being juggled.
Yes.
It's great.
And we got to see some of the inner workings of how they come up with this. I mean, and this is one of the hardest things to remember, but it's the survey. Come on, Mark, tell me. It's the LPPRP.
That's what I call it because I can never remember the rest of the words.
So it's a survey that they send out to the community. I know we filled it out each, but they ask the community, what do you want? And not just what do you want, but why do you want it and how do you want it? And this is how they developed that 5-year master plan. 5 years ago, the last time they did it, they got a little over 800 respondents. This year was just under 1,100.
Wow.
So we talk about participation waning. This is participation going up.
That's exactly what I was thinking when they told us those numbers in that meeting. I felt really good about that because I know what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one they talked about was Pirates Wharf, and that's a kind of a destination park. That's like, well, what do you want to do today? Oh, let's go to a park. That's a great place to drive to, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're about to start phase 2 in April.
Yep.
And Steve Miller was saying not only did it come back within budget, but under budget, and that was going to be a big hurdle. You talk about you didn't think that the lights were going to work. I mean, I don't know that Steve knew it was going to work. The one thing they can't start until August is the boat ramp because of the way the Maryland Department of Environment does their permitting. But the fishing pier out there and the marina and some of those trails out on that side of the park.
Yeah,
and they're planting 10,000 trees. Actually, I think they've done it.
If you go out there, you really do feel like you're in a whole nother world now.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I take my son there quite often, and it's an escape. Like you say, destination. It is, but you really feel like you're somewhere else.
Yeah. And as someone that takes recreation seriously, I made sure to test the playground equipment. All of it is top notch. Lots of fun. I'll tell anyone that wants to listen about how I got stuck in the rope jungle gym. And I loved how they did the slides look like they're in tree trunks and everything. My kids enjoyed it too. But I really loved it.
Probably like watching you get stuck.
Yeah.
Mike Goldberg and I, we went out to Wicomico County Park, and that has a boat ramp.
Yeah.
And it is a tiny park, right? But they added a fishing pier and a kayak.
I've seen, and that's made a huge difference for people go out there.
I mean, in this county, how cool is it that you could go to Leonard's Mill to a dog park, that you could go to Indian Village and go to an urban type park with a playground and new bathrooms, go out to Pirates Wharf and make a day out of it, or take your kayak out to Wicomico, and they're nothing alike.
Sure. Well,
so different.
Even in my part of the county, which is in the city of Salisbury, they've just redone Woodcock Park, which is also a tiny park. But I got to tell you, devices there that Sharon DeShiel, who's my city council representative, she said that she was using when she was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
So they needed to be upgraded badly, and they did a phenomenal job. And they've made it in such a way where, like, you see it already within just a couple of weeks from the opening. It's come to life. You get families there now that live in the neighborhood that really couldn't or didn't have an interest in going because the you had one of those old 1970s slides that.
They still had those ones where they rock back and forth that you could totally pinch your fingers in.
And listen, as a New Yorker who grew up with that, I'm not against it.
Yeah.
But you got to give a little bit more than that, and they really did, I think, a nice job of doing it. But this is to your point. I think we underestimate, well, maybe not us, but I think some people in the public might underestimate just the importance of what recreation space can do, especially for families, but for anybody.
Yeah.
It's such an asset to our community that we don't think of, and yet for so many of us, it's like the lifeblood of what we experience.
I know for at least a third of the year for us, it's really where we spend our evenings and our Saturdays, and
Yes.
we base our schedule around it. Of course, we're out there with the kids, but
Yeah.
we're also out there for our own,
Yes.
for
and,
ourselves.
And to your point about the equipment and the playgrounds they put in, they're all phenomenal.
Yeah.
And anytime we go out,
Yeah.
in all seriousness, my younger children are always playing on the equipment, and I appreciate that because with children, you have to trick them into getting exercise. So for them to want to go out and do
Yes.
this,
Yeah.
we do the same thing in our practices. You have to, make it seem fun to
Right.
get them to do
To actually have
running
the
and
fun,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the playgrounds are very effective. The kids are,
Yeah.
don't want to leave when we say we have to go.
But again, we like it too. So there's that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, I appreciate having fun with you guys today on this. This was really great. Is there anything you'd like to let the public know about in terms of what to be aware of on the horizon, or anything specifically that you think sort of your regular citizen at this stage, as we get into the spring and summer, should be made?
We're going to go through budget season at the county council. Attend one meeting in the next 2 months, and you're going to get to see some of the behind the scenes. And then the last Tuesday of May will be the next Park and Rec Commission meeting over at the Civic Center.
Okay.
I think if you can carve out just a little bit of time, you'll have not only a sense of what's going on, but also a say in what's going on. And I think
that.
that's very empowering.
Yeah,
So.
it's a very good point. Great.
I would say just from a staying informed standpoint, if you are in one of the outer towns in Wicomico County and you don't think that there is sports programming for you, just look around. We might be there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Our programming usually starts early registrations in June, goes through July, start practices August-ish.
Loose practices
Yes,
too.
yes.
It's not
if you
demanding.
can't- Yeah, we understand people taking
Still
vacations.
camping.
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
I get, yeah.
So these opportunities might be available to you, but if you're not an organized sports type, maybe go out to these parks that
Yeah.
Joe was talking about. I feel like you can get an entire tour of Maryland right in Wicomico County. These parks are so diverse
Yep.
and so wonderful.
Absolutely. Well put. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and information, and we will definitely hope to have you back to talk about these exciting developments. Great. And thank you. We'll be right back with our next segment of Open Agenda. Welcome back to our next segment of Open Agenda. I'm back in the studio with, once again, two people way smarter than myself. Mr. Mike Goldberg from Del Mar, welcome.
You must be talking about her.
And Ms. Trish Melvin from Fruitland. How are you? Good. Thanks for coming back. So we had a really cool and I think pretty robust discussion with Joe White and Mark Carroll about not only the work that they've done and what they've just been so passionate about in the community, but really about what the county offers and is continuing to offer with youth sports programming and parks and recreation more broadly. And I guess the question for both of you is, as private citizens who live in different parts of the county, and actually, Trish, you're from West Fruitland,
Yes.
right? I'm from Salisbury. Mike, you're from Del Mar. Very different communities in the sense of what they offer, population density, demographics. I'm curious from your experiences, what have you either enjoyed or gotten to experience locally as far as park facilities and just these kinds of recreational opportunities?
I use the parks quite a bit, not so much the sports parks because my aspirations to play Major League Baseball, I had to leave behind 2 or 3 years ago. But as an avid fisherman and outdoorsman, I go to Leonard's Mill quite a bit, especially because of the new dog park there. I live close by. It's a lovely park to start with. It has a gazebo where you can have a impromptu picnic, and of course the facilities for the dogs. and I have a 115-pound dog, so you need some space to run, and that provides it for her there. And there's even some pretty darn good fishing there, believe it or not, at Leonard's Mill. In fact, I've talked to people who come all the way from Dover to go fishing there. That's how good the bass and the crappie fishing is. But I use the parks on the west side more than anything. I love the Nanticoke River. To me, it's it's God's country, and so I'll go to Roaring Point, and I'll launch my boat out of either Cedar Creek or Nanticoke Seafood ramp there, and it's such a fantastic place to chase rockfish or to catch crabs. And you have plenty of heavily forested areas with southern pine forests. We are so blessed in this county to have these kinds of natural resources that it knocks my socks off, and it's really the primary reason that I chose Wicomico County to be my home.
And it's not far either. You can get to these places within a few minutes.
Sure.
In some cases, there have been days where I've taught class, and then in the afternoon when my day is over, I'll take my son and we'll go to Roaring Point, as you said, and it's like a transition. That's just, you're in a different world, but you're just right down the road.
Yep.
It's incredible. How about you, Trish?
Well, like Mike, my husband likes to take advantage of fishing and going to spots where he can fish early in the morning, and boat ramps, the access for boat ramps, he really appreciates that. I understand that the Woodcock Park opened up near Fruitland, in Salisbury.
There are,
And I'm looking forward to checking that out. I know it's a smaller park, but it sounds charming.
It was. I had the opportunity to be at the opening. Mayor Taylor was there, Council President April Jackson, my council representative Sharon DeShiel, Council Member Melissa Holland, and other officials were all there for the opening. And it was so cool because so many of the people in the crowd either had small kids that they brought because they were so excited, or they were older folks who had been there when they were kids, who were now coming back. And, in some cases they still live in the area, but they hadn't really seen upgrades in many, many years. And so this was phenomenal to see that kind of progress, especially in a neighborhood where if you want a walkable park, again, it's not, as you said, it's not a big place. It's about maybe a half an acre. But if you're in the neighborhood for a 5, 6, 7-year-old, even a 12-year-old, I mean, that's a cool place to now. But you can play basketball. You've got inclusive, accessible playground amusements. You've got climbing facilities. It's amazing how little changes and just an awareness of who would benefit from them can go such a long way. And that's, again, to your point about, with the fishing, it's like creating a pier even just attracts people in ways that you maybe wouldn't typically expect. And so some of these changes that help bring people in, they're not massive, but they are still substantial. And I think that's one of the things that we're beginning to see more in the county is that progress.
Just yesterday, I had to go out to the west side on some business, and I stopped by the Wicomico County Park, which I hadn't been to for throughout the winter. And during that time, they've built the fishing pier there, which is a fantastic facility. It gives you access to deep water. There was a young couple with their child fishing there. They had a bucket full of catfish, and I'm sure once summer kicks in, by June, I know there's going to be plenty of crabs up in that creek. And this gives people access who can't afford or for whatever reason don't have a boat. And when you have access to the deep water and the shallow water right there, you're going to be able to catch something to put on your dinner table and keep the kids entertained.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, just the entertainment aspect for younger kids is, speaking as a parent, that's... Even at the height of COVID, I remember when everything was closed down, one of the best things about living in Wicomico County was the ability to go to these parks and just be out there.
Yeah.
Without a mask.
Without anything. Without interference, without a mask, without concerns about, social distancing. I mean, you forget just what open space does, and just forget open space, just nature in general, how it is so restorative, to our souls and just to our frame of mind.
For me, it's an essential part of life, and the most unhappy years of my life were spent living in the big city, and I had to leave that behind me, and that's why I came to the Eastern Shore, because I knew that here, between Assateague in Worcester County and all of the fantastic parks on rivers, on tidal rivers that we have here in Wicomico, it's life is good. Life is good in Wicomico.
My dad always says this is a beautiful place. He loves it. He'd move here, but there's no hills, so he's got to settle for Montana. But what are you gonna do?
Well, there's a couple of dunes on Assateague Island.
I've seen properties where people will build their own little, hills if they have the space, and then just turn the soil that they dig up into a pond, and then so
we have Mount Trashmore too.
There is that.
Over at Brick Hill Road.
There is that, which maybe in 40 years will be a park. Who knows?
Yeah.
But well, folks, I really appreciate your insights on that, and I'm excited as we get into the spring and summer to see the things we can begin to enjoy more. And I got to try out that pier now out by Wicomico. That's on my list. So, thank you, sir.
It's a must-do.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. We're going to be back next week with a new episode of Open Agenda. Thank you for sticking around, and hopefully you too will get out and enjoy the awesome facilities that we have at our disposal here in Wicomico County. Take it easy.